Please comment where you're watching in the world. We were in a basement room of a Venice Beach community center, where the air smelled like oversteeped green tea and folding chairs scraped against polished concrete. A banner on the wall read, "Unlock Your Potential," and I was there mostly because I'd clicked interested on a Facebook event while drunk on a Wednesday. But when Avira stepped into the circle, barefoot, in a linen jumpsuit and a moonstone pendant that caught the light with every breath, the room went still. She didn't speak loudly. She didn't need to. "We're not here to fix you," she said. "We're here to remember who you already are." I felt something shift inside me. That night, she asked each of us to write down what we were willing to release. I scribbled doubt, fear, overthinking. She leaned over my shoulder, read it, and whispered, "You're overdue for expansion." I swallowed hard. The next few weeks, I kept coming back. Tuesday nights, same circle, same tea, same softly lit affirmations. Avira always sat cross-legged in the center, asking questions that felt like riddles and answers that felt like seductions. "You're not stuck," she would say. "You're just still hiding." I started opening up more than I meant to. About my job, my ex, my tendency to sabotage anything that felt too good. And every time I shared, she would nod and say, "That's exactly why you're here." It felt intoxicating, to be seen, not pitted. To be understood without having to explain. Then one night, she invited me to a smaller advancement circle at her apartment in West Hollywood. I said yes before she even finished the sentence. Her place was like a sanctuary, salt lamps, velvet throws, stacks of tarot decks and books with titles like Sovereign Self and The Art of Frequency. She served lavender kombucha and gluten-free brownies. There were 6 of us, all women, all wide-eyed and leaning in. That night, she introduced the Inner Alignment Network. "It's not a cult," she said, smiling like she'd said it before. "It's a community of activated women reclaiming their timeline." She passed out glossy brochures that looked like startup pitch decks. There were tiers. At the higher levels, you could become a vessel coach and start hosting your own circles. You got commissions for inviting others. You could even earn ascension bonuses. It didn't feel like a pyramid. It felt like power. "People will try to shrink you," Avira said, locking eyes with me. "Sometimes they look like friends. Sometimes they are friends." That's when she suggested I take a break from low-vibration connections. "You can't rise," she said, while dragging anchors. I knew who she meant. I stopped replying to my best friend's texts. I skipped my cousin's birthday dinner. I muted old group chats and told myself I was just focusing inward. In return, I got access to the private Slack channel. Hundreds of women posting wins, mantras, screenshots of payment confirmations and selfies in workout sets captioned, aligned and ascending. It felt like a digital sisterhood. Every time I posted, they flooded me with fire emojis. Then came the fees. First, a $29 energy calibration fee. Then $58 for a chakra balancing module. Then $199 for a vessel coaching starter toolkit, which included a workbook and a crystal I could have bought on Etsy. When I hesitated, Avira called me. "You're resisting," she said gently. "That's your fear talking. Don't let it block your frequency." I paid. I told myself I was investing in my evolution. One morning, I got a DM from her. "You're ready for the next step. Private mentorship." It was $999. I paused. Rent was due. My car needed brakes. But I said yes anyway. Our one-on-one sessions were different. We met in her apartment. She lit sage and asked me to sit on the floor, knees touching. She asked me questions I didn't know how to answer. Where does your shame live? What does your body do when you lie to yourself? Her fingers brushed my hand when I spoke. She cupped my face once, just to ground me, and left her thumb on my cheek a second too long. It wasn't sexual. Not exactly. But it wasn't neutral either. She told me I was made of fire and softness. She said I was the kind of woman who bends the air. I felt high when I left her apartment, like I'd just been kissed by God. Then I checked my bank account. Over $1,700 gone in a month. Between fees, toolkits, and alignment audits, I was bleeding money. I brought it up gently. She tilted her head. "You're stuck in scarcity again." I nodded. Then I cried. She hugged me, whispered, "You're so close." The next week, I saw a post from one of the senior coaches. A screenshot of a PayPal refund request. The caption read, "This is what sabotage looks like." The woman's account disappeared the next day. I started to feel the edges of the curtain. I showed up at the next circle distracted, and Avira noticed. Your energy feels fractured, she said. Are you leaking trust? I left early. That night, I called my old friend, the one I ghosted. She answered on the second ring. Oh my God, she said. Are you alive? I broke down. Told her everything. She listened. Then she said, you know you're in a cult, right? I laughed. Then I cried harder. The next morning, I logged out of the Slack channel. I deleted the app. I blocked the auto payment. I texted Avira that I was stepping away. She replied, regression is part of the spiral. You'll find your way back. I never did. The sun broke through the clouds in a way that felt like a promise. Seattle wasn't known for weather like this, not during spring, when everything was usually damp and gray. But that Saturday, the sky opened up just in time for the Clean Tomorrow Now rally, casting a golden glow over Gasworks Park. Dozens of booths lined the grass, fluttering banners advertising everything from wind turbine demos to composting tutorials. I came because my roommate begged me to. She's the one who brings her own bamboo cutlery to restaurants and lectures me about microplastics and lip balm. I'm more of a recycle when I remember kind of girl. But I wasn't expecting to meet someone like Leona. She stood in front of a booth labeled Clean Energy for All, holding a stack of flyers in one hand and gesturing passionately with the other. Her voice carried through the crowd, not loud but magnetic. She wore a cap made of recycled cotton, her dark curls tucked underneath, and a faded olive utility jacket that looked like it had seen 100 protests. When she handed me a badge, our fingers touched. Something electric passed between us. Stay for the solar boot camp, she said. You look like someone who gives a damn. I laughed. I mostly came for the free vegan cheese samples. She smirked. Then I've got work to do. We spent the next 2 hours walking the booths together. She explained solar panel grids like poetry, tossing in statistics about carbon output like they were punchlines. I found myself following her not because I cared about the data, but because I couldn't stop looking at her. The way her eyes lit up when she talked about environmental justice. The way she adjusted her cap when the wind picked up. The way she stood close enough that our shoulders brushed every time we stopped to talk. By the end of the rally, I'd signed up for 3 workshops, donated $20 to a battery project, and given her my full contact info, phone, email, even my apartment address. For the starter kit, she said, and maybe other things. I flushed. She smiled. I walked away feeling like I'd just been kissed, even though we hadn't touched beyond that first brush of fingertips. For the next few days, I floated. Texts from Leona came in like sunbeams, links to local cleanups, invites to free screenings of climate docs, articles about rooftop gardens. Her messages were always short, always warm. She called me Spark. I called her Sun. Then things started getting strange. My phone battery began dying faster than usual. At first, I blamed it on the apps, Instagram, Google Maps, Spotify. But even overnight, while on airplane mode, the battery would drop 20%. I brushed it off, until I checked my location history. There were pins at places I hadn't visited. A tea shop 2 neighborhoods over. A co-op I'd never entered. A park I hadn't been near since last year. And worse, there were timestamps for early morning hours when I was definitely asleep in my apartment. I went cold. I dug through my bag, searching for anything unusual. That's when I found the rally badge, still clipped to the inside of my purse. It looked innocent enough, laminated paper, logo on the front, QR code on the back. But when I peeled back the edge, I found it. A chip. Flat. Black. Smaller than a dime. My breath caught. I remembered how Leona had pressed the badge into my hand. How she'd insisted I keep it on during the group photo. How she'd adjusted my collar with a soft, lingering touch. I messaged her. Me, hey. Random Q, was there a tracker in the rally badge? No reply. I waited. An hour. Then 3. Then overnight. Her silence was louder than any answer. The next day, I went back to the rally site, now just an empty park. No booths. No banners. Just damp grass and joggers with earbuds. I walked the perimeter, half hoping to see her, half hoping I wouldn't. That night, I dug deeper. I scanned the QR code on the badge and traced it to a site called EcoPulse Analytics, a behavioral insights firm focused on sustainability engagement metrics. Their homepage featured stock photos of smiling activists and heat maps of city streets. I clicked through the privacy policy. They collected data on foot traffic, dwell time, demographic intersections, and volunteer responsiveness. There was a clause about anonymous tracking devices issued during partner events. My name wasn't mentioned, but my body was mapped. I wanted to throw up. I messaged Leona again. Me. I trusted you. A few minutes later, she replied, Leona, it's not what you think. We met that evening in Capitol Hill, in a tucked-away cafe with mismatched chairs and low-hanging plants. She wore the same jacket, but something in her posture had shifted. Less flame, more fog. I didn't know they'd go that far, she said, avoiding my eyes. The trackers were supposed to be opt-in, just for volunteers. You gave me one, I said, without asking. She looked up. I thought you'd say yes. I thought you'd want to be part of something bigger. You used me, I said. You watched me. I didn't watch, she said quickly. The data wasn't personal. It was collective. I never saw your name, just movement, patterns, interest levels. That's how we get grants now. That's how we prove engagement. I stared at her. You made me feel something real. And then you packaged it. Her lips parted. Her eyes softened. For a moment, I thought she might cry. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said. But you have to understand, this is how change happens. Through metrics. Not just passion. I stood up. Then maybe you picked the wrong person. She didn't follow me. I went home and stripped my phone of everything. Apps, permissions, location services. I bought a burner. I started walking without GPS. I stopped posting for a week. My friends thought I was going through a breakup. In a way I was, because Leona had made me feel seen. And then she'd turn me into data. Eventually, I rejoined the world. Carefully. Slowly. I still care about the planet. I still compost. I still bring my own tote bag to the store. But I don't give out my address to anyone with a clipboard and a pretty smile. The conference room smelled like espresso and ambition. The ceiling arched like a cathedral, lined with heavy chandeliers that flickered as if they knew the secrets being whispered beneath them. I was there for a weekend legal seminar, contract law in practice, something I signed up for on a whim after a breakup and a bottle of Malbec. I thought it would be a change of pace, something dry, dense, and forgettable. But then Seraphine sat on the arm of the chair next to mine, crossed her legs, and asked if I'd ever considered protecting my assets. She wore a sharply tailored navy pantsuit that clung to her frame like it had been sewn directly onto her. Her voice was low, precise, like she measured every syllable before releasing it. Prenups aren't just for the rich, she said, sipping her cappuccino. They're for the smart. I shrugged. I have more student debt than assets. She tilted her head. That's temporary, but your rights around ownership, those last, especially if you start building something. I didn't know then that she was already building something, with me at the center of it. We started sitting together during workshops. Her notes were color-coded. Mine were half-baked doodles in the margins of my folder. She teased me about my attention span. I teased her about her obsession with offshore trusts. I like knowing where my money sleeps, she said over brunch at the Alice, tracing the rim of her mimosa glass with a perfectly manicured finger. And I don't like it sleeping in the same bed as the IRS. I laughed. She didn't. There was something magnetic about her. I couldn't tell if it was the way her eyes held mine a second too long, or the way she dropped legal jargon like it was foreplay. She made clauses sound like confessions. She made me want to sign things. So when she offered to draft a sample prenuptial agreement for me, just for fun, just to show me what a strong one looked like, I said yes. It's good practice, she said over dinner at ABA, her ankle brushing mine under the table. Think of it as an exercise in future-proofing. The agreement was 7 pages long. Sleek font. Clean formatting. She emailed it to me with a wink emoji in the subject line, just in case. I skimmed it between meetings and wine nights. It said all the right things. Clear boundaries. No messy entanglements. A section on intellectual property. She remembered I'd been working on a book. A section on privacy. And toward the end, a line that read, all premarital and marital assets shall, upon signing, be transferred into the Seraphine Family Trust, domiciled in the Cayman Islands. I paused. Messaged her. Question, what's this Cayman bit about? She replied within seconds. That's optional. It's a sample clause. Helps you visualize how high net worth clients shield their estates. I can remove it. I exhaled. Told her to take it out. She sent a new version. I didn't check the metadata. I didn't read every line. I signed it on my iPad, feeling vaguely empowered, and went back to my life. A month later, I got an email from my financial advisor. Subject line, unusual transfer flagged. I stared at the message. All my liquid assets, savings, investments, even the $4,800 from the car I'd sold, had been moved into something called SFT Holdings. I called Seraphine. She answered like she'd been expecting me. "It must be a clerical error," she said smoothly. "I'll fix it." I waited. Days passed. Then she emailed saying the trust administrator in the Caymans was moving slow and that jurisdictional compliance might delay the reversal. I Googled the trust. It was real. It was irrevocable. I hadn't just imagined being betrayed. I'd signed for it. I flew to Chicago that Friday. She met me in the hotel lobby, flawless in a camel coat and red lipstick. She looked like someone who'd never had a panic attack in a Target parking lot. "You came all this way," she said, smiling like this was a romantic gesture. "You told me it was removed," I said, holding up the signed agreement. She took the papers, scanned them, and sighed. "I must have sent the wrong version." "No, you sent the right version. You just buried the wrong clause in it." Something in her eyes flickered. A crack in the glass. "You're overreacting," she said. "It's not like the money's gone. It's just sleeping offshore." I wanted to scream. Instead, I called a solicitor friend. She pulled the trust documents and confirmed the worst. The structure was airtight, the assets frozen unless the trustee agreed to release them. And the trustee? A shell firm, legally bound to Seraphine's parameters. I'd signed myself out of my own accounts. "You can't revoke this without a multi-jurisdictional appeal," my friend said. "It could take years." I felt like I'd been kissed and robbed in the same breath. I messaged Seraphine again. Nothing. Weeks passed. My rent bounced. Auto payments failed. Credit cards declined. I sold my old camera. Took on contract work I didn't want. I canceled therapy because I couldn't afford the copay. Meanwhile, Seraphine posted photos from a finance retreat in Lake Tahoe. Her captions were all quotes about controlling your narrative and owning your future. I wanted to burn every printout of that fake prenup. Eventually, the Cayman trustee sent a letter. "We have reviewed your request and, per the terms of the deed, cannot release assets without express consent from the primary administrator." That administrator was Seraphine. I sent one last email. Subject, "You win." Message, "I hope it was worth it." She replied 3 words. "It always is." I never heard from her again. I opened a new savings account under a different bank. Started keeping cash in an envelope under my mattress like I was 85. I went back to working weekends and telling myself this was temporary. Now I read every contract. Twice. And when someone offers to help me plan for the future, I ask to see their license, their trust deed, and their soul, preferably in that order. It was a Sunday morning in Silver Lake. The class was supposed to be casual, a drop-in session on a downtown loft with a view of palm trees and power lines. I figured it'd be a nice break from my usual weekend routine of scrolling, snacking, and regretting both. I didn't expect to meet Elian. He moved across the rooftop like he was floating, barefoot on sun-warmed concrete, his voice low and steady as he welcomed us to our mats. He wore a sleeveless black tank that clung to his chest and loose linen joggers tied low on his hips. His hair was pulled back in a tight bun, a few strands falling loose near his temples. He looked like every woman's fantasy of a man who reads Rumi and gives incredible massages. "Let your breath guide your body," he murmured as we folded into child's pose. "You're not here to perform. You're here to feel." I felt it. Every word of his slid into me like warm oil. His hands brushed my shoulders to adjust my posture, gentle but precise, and I swear my spine hummed under his touch. After class, he offered me a cup of ginger tea and asked if I'd ever considered private sessions. "Small group or one-on-one," he said, "depending on how deep you want to go." I raised an eyebrow. "How deep are we talking?" He smiled like he had secrets. "Alignment, breath work, somatic release. We hold more in our hips than we think." I booked a session on the spot. His home studio was in the hills, one of those modern lofts with floor-to-ceiling windows and shelves lined with crystals and succulents. The walls were whitewashed brick, the floors dark wood, and a low incense burn filled the space with sandalwood and something sweeter underneath. There were no mirrors, just a full-length curtain and a single camera perched on a shelf in the corner. "That's for form review," he said when I asked. "I record some sessions so clients can see their own movement. It's totally optional." I nodded. The camera was subtle, almost decorative. Our first few sessions were everything I didn't know I needed. Elian moved like poetry. He corrected my posture with slow, patient hands, his fingers grazing the backs of my thighs, the curve of my waist, the slope of my neck. He never lingered too long, but his touch left a trail that tingled long after he stepped away. "You're holding tension in your psoas," he said once, pressing into the inside of my hip with his thumb. I gasped, quiet but sharp. He looked into my eyes and smiled. "Let it go." I wanted to let go. I wanted to melt. After each session, we'd sit cross-legged on the floor, sipping herbal tea while he showed me clips of my alignment, my arms in Warrior 2, the curve of my back in camel pose, how my core stabilized through transitions. It felt intimate, almost sensual, like watching a version of myself I hadn't seen before. By week 3, I was addicted. To the stillness. To the breath. To him. He started calling me Soft Flame. Said I radiated heat and calm at the same time. I blushed like a teenager every time he looked at me for too long. I started wearing tighter leggings, looser tops. I let my hair fall undone. I wanted him to notice. I think he knew. Then one afternoon, he asked if I'd mind if he recorded the full session. "Just for you," he said. "You're progressing fast. Watching yourself helps you refine the subtleties." I agreed. I wanted to see. I wanted to be seen. That day's session was deeper than any before. The poses felt more fluid, the flow more hypnotic. Elian's hands lingered longer, adjusting my hips as I folded into pigeon pose, his breath hovering near my ear as he whispered, "Breathe here. Stay open." I stayed. Open. We didn't touch beyond what was necessary, but the air between us was charged. My skin buzzed where his fingers had been. Every inhale felt like a secret passed between us. Afterward, he promised to send the video. I waited. A day passed. Then 2. I texted him. "Hey, would love the video when you get a sec." He replied, "Uploading issues. Should be good by the weekend." The weekend came and went. Nothing. Then on Monday night, I got curious. And stupid. I Googled still flame yoga out of boredom. The first link led to a private site, password protected. But the preview thumbnails loaded anyway. Dozens of videos. Dozens of women. All in Elian's studio. All in poses that felt too intimate for public display. One of them was me. The video was labeled, Soft Flame, Deep Flow Series, Uncut. My face was visible. My body, bent and breathing, fully centered. A small preview button hovered in the corner. I clicked it. My stomach dropped. The angles were close. Too close. Zoomed in on the rise of my shirt as I twisted. The arch of my back in bridge pose. The outline of my bra through my tank top. It felt voyeuristic. Softcore under the guise of alignment. I slammed my laptop shut. Then I opened it again and searched the source code. The site was tied to a hosting platform with a paywall. Tiered memberships. Monthly subscriptions. Some users had left comments. Perfect flexibility. Love the way she breathes into the stretch. Any more of Soft Flame? I went cold. I called Elian. No answer. I sent a message. "What the fuck is this?" He replied, "I didn't post that publicly. It's a curated archive. Your face is blurred for paid users." My face wasn't blurred. I told him to delete everything. He said he would. Then he added, "I never meant to violate your trust. You looked so beautiful in movement. I thought you'd want to share that." Share that? I spent the night on the floor of my bathroom, arms wrapped around my knees, trying not to scream. I felt exposed. Like my body had been borrowed and sold without permission. The next morning, I contacted a friend who's a digital rights lawyer. She walked me through a takedown notice. DMCA. Privacy violation. Image rights. I sent it all to the hosting platform. I emailed Elian again. He finally responded, "Fine. It's down." Happy. The video was gone. But the feeling wasn't. I stopped going to yoga. I canceled every class, deleted every app. I stopped wearing leggings for a month. I flinched every time someone stood behind me in line. I second-guessed every compliment. The worst part? I missed him. I hated that I missed him. Because somewhere in the beginning, it had felt real. The tea. The breath. The way he touched me like I mattered. But that's how it works, doesn't it? They make you feel safe. Then they take. Eventually, I found a new studio, crowded, fluorescent, impersonal. No candles. No cameras. Just mats and breath and strangers. I didn't talk to anyone. I moved on my own time. One day after class, the instructor complimented my form. I thanked her and left. His hand lingered a second too long on my lower back as I stepped off the squat platform. "Form's getting better," he murmured, low enough that I could feel the words in my ribs. "You're starting to open up." I gave him a crooked smile, trying not to show how breathless I was. "That's what happens when you yell at me to sink lower every session." Cairo didn't laugh. He just looked at me, really looked. The kind of look I'd once mistaken for sincerity, before I learned it could also mean calculation. It was our 6th session. The air in the boutique gym smelled like eucalyptus and sweat, and I was still trying to decide if I liked how close he stood when he adjusted my posture. He was built like a statue, smooth dark skin, lean muscle, always in black joggers and tank tops that exposed just enough of his chest to make me want to touch it. His tattoos wrapped around his arms like vines, disappearing under fabric and reappearing at the collarbone. "Let's stretch you out," he said, grabbing a mat. I followed, heart still thudding. He knelt beside me, guiding my arm overhead as I twisted into a spinal stretch. His fingers pressed into my ribs. "Right there. Breathe into that." I did. I didn't notice when his other hand rested just above my hip, warm against the waistband of my leggings. I should have. But it felt good. It felt intimate, like he was listening to my body in a way most people never did. After the session, we sat on the gym's patio sipping protein smoothies. "You're leveling up," he said, watching me over the rim of his cup. "You ever think about pushing harder? Going full commitment mode?" I raised a brow. "What does that mean?" "Just makes it easier if we automate everything. No more swiping your card or Venmo ING me every week. I offer direct debit. You focus on your progress. I handle the rest." He pulled out a tablet and slid it toward me. The screen displayed a form titled Client Performance Agreement. Tiny text. "Lots of it." I know, he said, grinning. "Legal stuff. Ex-cop habits. I like things official." I skimmed it. Something about authorized withdrawals, performance evaluations, tiered metrics. My brain fuzzed over the language, but I figured it was standard, and I trusted him. Or at least I wanted to. I signed. That week, he turned up the heat. Our workouts got harder. He added resistance bands, weighted vests, and surprise burnout rounds. It hurt in the best way. My muscles ached, but I felt alive. After one brutal session, he walked me through cooldowns, his hands sliding along my hamstrings with practiced ease. "You're strong," he said. "You just don't know it yet." I flushed. That night, I dreamed of him gripping my hips, not for alignment, but something Messier. I woke up tangled in sheets, pulse racing. Over the next few weeks, we started texting outside of sessions. He sent me motivational voice notes. "Don't skip your water today. I better see you foam roll tonight. You're gonna feel incredible tomorrow." I lived for them. Then came the first alert. A $275 charge from Cairo Performance popped up on my banking app. More than double the usual session fee. I frowned, assuming it was a glitch. Me. "Hey, saw a weird charge. Double what we agreed." Cairo. "Yeah, that's the new performance tier. You hit your benchmarks, so I bumped you." I stared at the message, confused. Me. "Wait. I didn't approve that." Cairo. "You signed for adaptive billing. It's all in the contract. You're killing it. This is a good thing." I scrolled back to the document I'd signed. Buried in the blocks of text was a clause. Trainer reserves the right to assess progress and adjust billing to reflect increased time, complexity, or performance tier. My stomach turned. I called my bank. They said the debit was authorized. I'd given him access. I confronted him the next session. He smiled like I was being silly. "You're literally improving. Don't sabotage yourself over numbers. This is just reinvesting in your own results." I didn't argue. Not then. But the charges kept coming. $150 for assessment recalibration. $90 for equipment depreciation. $300 for off-hours access. My account bled. I texted him again. Me. "I can't keep up with these fees." "What's going on?" Cairo. "All part of the elite track. You're past the casual phase. I thought that's what you wanted." I started skipping sessions. He didn't push back, but the money kept disappearing. He messaged me like nothing was wrong. "Need to see that plank form soon, winky face." I started sleeping with my phone on Do Not Disturb. Late one Friday, I showed up at the gym unannounced. His office door was closed. I knocked once, then twice. He opened it, shirtless, sweat glistening. My mouth dried. "I need to talk," I said, stepping inside. He leaned against the desk, arms crossed, muscles flexing. "Shoot." You said you'd fix the billing. You didn't. He shrugged. Refunds process quarterly. It's in the agreement. Section 12. I pulled out my phone. You used my signature to drain my account. You authorized performance-based billing. I stared at him. You manipulated me. He smiled, slow and deliberate. I trained you. If you didn't want to level up, you should have said so. I walked out. That weekend, I filed a report with a free legal clinic. They called the contract predatory, but technically enforceable. We drafted a demand letter. I sent it to him and CC'd the gym owner. The withdrawals stopped. A few days later, I went back to the gym. His locker was empty. His name stripped from the schedule. I never got all my money back. Just a partial refund labeled adjusted reconciliation fee. But I got my power back. Now I train solo. I pay in cash. I read every contract line by line. I still squat deep. I still foam roll. But I don't let anyone talk me into performance tiers disguised as... I hadn't planned on going to the Clean Future Now festival, but my roommate insisted. Something about touching grass and calibrating my carbon karma. I rolled my eyes but went anyway. I didn't expect to care. Then I met Zareen. She stood beneath a banner that read Clean Energy for All, her hair tucked under a cap made from upcycled denim, handing out flyers with the kind of focus usually reserved for surgeons. She had this fierce steadiness to her, like the earth itself owed her something, and she was here to collect on behalf of the future. When our eyes met, she smiled, not performative, not polite. Real. Like she was seeing something in me I didn't even know was there. You here for the vibe or the cause? She asked, holding out a badge with a QR code. Honestly, my roommate bribed me with vegan donuts. She laughed. Good entry point. But let's see if we can get you to stay for the science. There was something about her voice, low and smooth, with just enough gravel to feel lived in. I followed her past booths displaying vertical hydroponic gardens and solar-powered scooters. At one tent, a VR headset offered a simulation of what San Francisco would look like submerged under 5 feet of water. At another, a wind turbine demo spun silently, its blades catching the breeze like dancers mid-pirouette. Zareen led me through it all like she'd built the place herself. She explained things in easy language, but never dumbed anything down. This tile absorbs solar radiation and converts it into electricity. Imagine your roof covered in these. You could power your entire apartment building. I nodded like I understood, but mostly I was watching her lips move. That day we moved from booth to booth, sampling oat milk ice cream and testing compostable phone chargers. She asked for my number, in case we need more volunteers. I handed over my info without hesitation, phone number, email, even my home address for the starter kit. I left the festival with a reusable tote full of pamphlets, a biodegradable water bottle, and a strange sense of hope. For the next few days, my phone buzzed constantly. Texts from Zareen inviting me to workshops, links to articles on climate policy, invites to community cleanup days. I felt plugged into something bigger than myself. I told my friends I was waking up. I started using words like regenerative and circular economy in casual conversation. Then things got weird. My phone battery started draining faster than usual. At first, I thought it was all the new apps I'd downloaded, weather trackers, carbon footprint calculators, some crowdsourced birdwatching thing Zareen had recommended. But even when I closed all the apps, the drain kept happening. One night, I checked my location history. There were pins at places I hadn't been. A coffee shop in the Mission I'd never entered, a museum across town, a BART station I hadn't used in weeks. Even creepier, my sleep tracker showed movement at 3:17 a.m., even though I hadn't left my bed. I thought maybe my phone was glitching. Then I remembered the badge Zareen gave me at the festival. I still had it, clipped to the strap of my backpack. I turned it over. Tucked under the laminated logo was a tiny square of plastic, thin, matte black, almost invisible. Something about it looked off. I peeled it open. Inside was a chip. A GPS chip. My stomach dropped. I ran to my laptop and started digging. I searched the badge's QR code, traced it to a group called Green Pulse Analytics. They weren't a nonprofit. They were a sustainability insights firm with investors from Silicon Valley. Their website was full of words like behavioral mapping and pedestrian flow optimization. I clicked deeper. One of their partners was a firm I'd seen advertised on my Instagram feed the day after the rally, offering me a discount on bamboo fiber underwear. I messaged Zareen. Me, hey, weird question. Was there a tracker in the badge you gave me? No reply. I waited. Hours passed. Still nothing. I tried calling. Straight to voicemail. I went to the park the next day, hoping to find her at one of the pop-up booths. Nothing. Just joggers, dog walkers, and a guy selling mushroom jerky out of a cooler. That night, I tore through my apartment. I checked every item from the festival. I found a second chip, this one sewn into the inside pocket of the canvas tote bag. I felt violated. Not just watched, harvested. I stopped going outside. I kept my phone in a drawer and dug out an old burner I'd used when I was backpacking through Europe. I scribbled my appointments on sticky notes instead of using Google Calendar. I stopped using Uber and took the bus in oversized sunglasses and a hoodie, like I was hiding from the NSA. I couldn't sleep. Every creak in the hallway sent my heart racing. I started taping over my laptop camera. I unplugged my smart speaker. I downloaded a VPN. My roommate thought I was spiraling. Maybe I was. A week later, Zareen finally texted back. Zareen, it's complicated. Can we talk? We met at a Blue Bottle downtown. I wore a hat and sat facing the door. She walked in wearing the same denim cap, holding 2 paper cups. I didn't know you'd find it that fast, she said, sliding one across the table. Find what? The chip in my bag? Or the one on the badge? Or the fact that you were selling activist data to tech firms? She sighed. It's not like that. I stared at her. Okay, maybe it is, she admitted. But not in the evil corporation way. They're using the data to track foot traffic, optimize sustainability campaigns, tailor political messaging. It's not spyware. It's engagement science. You tracked me, I said, voice low. Without consent. She looked down. I thought you knew. It was in the fine print. The fine print. Always the fine print. I believed you, I said. I thought you cared. I do, she said, eyes meeting mine. But caring doesn't fix what's broken. We needed real numbers. Movement patterns, demographic overlays. That's how policy gets shaped now. Not with protests. With data. I stood up. You don't get to weaponize hope and call it strategy. She didn't follow me. I went home and spent the rest of the night deleting everything. Files, apps, browser extensions. I mailed the badge and tote to the return address on Greenpulse site with a note that said, "Don't ever contact me again." I started carrying a Faraday pouch. I stopped sharing my location with friends. I even turned off read receipts. It took weeks to feel normal again. Eventually, I went back to the farmer's market, but I didn't stop at the sustainability booths. I walked past the compostable straws and solar lanterns without making eye contact. I kept my headphones in and my head down. One day, I saw a new flyer on a bulletin board, Grassroots Energy Collective seeking volunteers. I stared at it for a long time. Then I tore it down. I still remember the night I walked into that converted warehouse in Williamsburg, the kind with exposed brick, Edison bulbs, and startup logos glowing on every inch of wall space like digital graffiti. The air smelled like burnt popcorn and something vaguely citrusy, probably those overhyped energy drinks stacked next to a booth for a cloud-based time management tool. I wasn't even supposed to be there. My friends bailed last minute with the usual excuses. Work thing, migraine, rain check. But I needed a change of scenery. After a week of working remotely and barely speaking to anyone outside Slack and my barista at Bluestone Lane, I figured I could at least pretend I was networking. The kind of place someone like me, single and semi-hopeful, might meet someone who actually understood the difference between attention and connection. That's when I saw him. Torin. He was leaning against a high-top table like it was a throne, spinning a branded coaster between his fingers. His hoodie, navy minimalist, with a tiny embroidered flame logo near the chest, was zipped halfway up over a soft gray tee that looked expensive in an unassuming way. He had one of those smiles that made you feel like he already knew your story and wasn't judging it. "First-timer?" he asked. I blinked. "That obvious?" He grinned. "You've got the wide-eyed look, like you're here for a reason, but pretending you're just here for the swag." I laughed. "Guilty." He extended a hand. "Torin, I'm one of the founders of Aerosync." I raised an eyebrow. "What's Aerosync?" "Beta-stage dating app," he said. "We use machine learning to match people based on their Spotify habits, TikTok likes, meme reactions, and get this, how they text their friends after midnight." I snorted. "So my dating life is now a data science project?" "Better than basing it on 6 selfies and a height claim," he shot back. Aerosync actually learns you. It's not just swipe left, swipe right. It's deeper. He pulled out his phone and showed me a prototype. Sleek interface. Gradient pinks and purples. Placeholder images of trendy New Yorkers smiling like they'd never been ghosted. There was something magnetic about it, like the promise of a better version of love, if only you trusted the algorithm. We're doing a closed beta, he said, thumb hovering over the invite screen. You seem like someone who knows what they want. I'd love to have you on board. I hesitated, and then I didn't. I gave him my email, then my number, then, for reasons I still don't understand, my work address. For the welcome pack, he said. You'll get a sticker, a pin, maybe a hoodie if you're lucky. Something about the way he said it made me feel chosen. Seen. I walked home that night with my heart doing that fluttery thing it only does when there's hope and danger in equal measure. I texted my best friend something like, met a guy. He's building a love app. Might be a cult. We'll report back. The next few days, I kept refreshing my inbox like a teenager waiting for college decisions. The welcome email didn't come. Then it did, but the app link was temporarily down for maintenance. Then there were server issues. Then a minor algorithm overhaul. Classic startup stalling. But the real red flag came wrapped in something more subtle. My inbox started filling with emails. Not from Torin. From brands. Hey, we saw you signed up for Aerosync. Want us to run targeted ads to your followers? Unlock exclusive offers for data-savvy singles. Partner with us and monetize your preferences. At first, I assumed they were spam. The kind you get after ordering one thing online and never reading the privacy box. But the timing was too precise. These weren't just generic promotions. They were about me. My playlists. My posts. My midnight cravings. I started seeing ads for restaurants I'd looked up once at 1 a.m. videos for gadgets I'd casually mentioned in a text. A smoothie company DM'd me to offer a discount, and they knew my exact favorite flavor. It felt like someone had crawled inside my group chats and decided to sell me back to myself. I texted Torin. Me. Hey, are these spam emails part of the beta thing? Torin. Oh, those? Just our launch partners. Helps offset server costs. Totally safe smiling face with smiling eyes. He added the smiley face like it was a period, a soft closure. But my gut twisted. I started digging. I traced the email headers. Cross-referenced the IPs. Some of them pointed back to marketing firms I'd seen on LinkedIn. Big ones. The kind that don't just scrape data, they buy it in bulk. I didn't remember giving anyone permission. But buried in the onboarding screen was a line I'd glossed over. By participating in the beta, you consent to limited third-party collaboration for performance optimization. Performance optimization. What a beautiful euphemism for selling me out. By day 5, my Instagram ads were unhinged. I tweeted something sarcastic about binge-watching old sci-fi shows, and within the hour, I got a DM from a drone company offering me early access to their prototype. I posted a grainy pic of my lunch, a grilled cheese with pickles, and a meal delivery service followed up with a coupon code and a note that said, "We love your taste." It was too much. I felt watched. Not in the paranoid, tinfoil hat way. In the very real, someone just monetized my personality way. I tried calling Torin. Straight to voicemail. I texted. Left on read. I opened the app link again. This time it was dead. Just a blank page with the Aerosync logo flickering like a glitch. If you refreshed too many times, even that disappeared. I sat on my couch that night, heart pounding, phone buzzing with more offers I never asked for. I cracked open my laptop and started revoking app permissions like my life depended on it. I changed passwords, deleted cookies, logged out of every social platform I'd ever used on my phone. My roommate walked in and asked why our kitchen looked like a crime scene. Every surface was covered in post-its, new passwords, app names, account resets. Digital hygiene, I muttered, not looking up. He nodded slowly, probably assuming I was just going through another one of my phases. A week passed. Then 2. Eventually, I got an email from Torin. Not to apologize. Not to explain. Just a chirpy little note titled Aerosync Update. In it, he announced that the app had pivoted into a data analytics platform focused on enhanced user engagement. Whatever that meant. He said I'd get a refund on the premium subscription I never signed up for. The email landed in my spam folder. Somehow that felt poetic. I didn't reply. Instead, I deleted every dating app on my phone. I stopped clicking on quizzes that promised to tell me what kind of bread I'd be in a past life. I even spent a weekend off-grid, no phone, no screens. Just me, my thoughts, and a paperback I found at a used bookstore in Soho. It wasn't a grand transformation. There was no big confrontation. No viral Twitter thread exposing Torin and his startup. Just a slow, painful rebuild of my own trust, in people and platforms, in my ability to tell the difference between genuine connection and a brand activation. I still think about that night sometimes. The way his smile made me feel like I was walking into something real. I wonder if he even remembers me. If I was just another user on a spreadsheet, another profile to be sliced, tagged, and sold. Now, whenever I download a new app and it asks for access to my contacts, I pause. I read the policy. Most of the time, I just tap no and delete the app. Delia had that kind of beauty that made you slow down when she walked past, even if she wasn't looking at you. I met her at a used bookstore in Fort Greene, where she was arguing with the clerk about a missing first edition of the Bell Jar. She had short, dark hair that curled at the ends, a tiny silver ring in her nose, and a voice like she'd been smoking since birth. When she turned to me and said, "Can you believe this shit?" I smiled and said, "I can't, but I want to." We left with coffee and a shared hatred of overpricing. She asked questions with her whole face, tilting her head, narrowing her eyes, as if your answer might change everything. I liked that. She was intense, but not performative. It felt like she was pulling you closer, even when she stood still. Our second date lasted 8 hours. We ended up back at her apartment, a third-floor walk-up in Prospect Heights filled with incense, half-dead plants, and a cat named Radish. That's when I noticed the blood. She was brushing her teeth, leaning over the sink, when I saw a thin red streak slide down from one nostril. She didn't flinch. "You okay?" I asked. She looked in the mirror, wiped it calmly. "Yeah, it happens. Like a lot. Only when I'm stressed," she said. "Or when the heating's too dry. Or when I sleep too hard." She said it like someone who'd explained this 100 times. It didn't come up again for a while. We kept seeing each other, lazy brunches, late-night movies, a few borderline feral make-out sessions on her couch. She would press her body into mine like she was trying to disappear inside me. She said she slept best when I was there, like my chest kept her anchored. I believed her. Then came the dinner. We were at a small Italian place in Fort Greene. Low lights, white tablecloths, waiters who wore ties like they meant it. Delia looked unreal. Tight black dress, gold hoops, red lipstick that made her mouth look even more dangerous than usual. Halfway through the burrata, she excused herself to the bathroom. When she came back, she was holding a napkin to her face. Blood on it. A lot of it. I stood, panicking. "What happened?" She looked at me, wide-eyed, dazed, and said, loud enough for the couple behind us to hear, "You hit me." I froze. The table next to us went quiet. A waiter turned. "What?" I said. She didn't repeat it. Just sat down slowly, still pressing the napkin to her nose. The waiter approached. "Is everything all right here?" Delia didn't look up. She let the silence hang. Then she said, "I'm fine." It was just a moment. I tried to smile. She gets nosebleeds sometimes. This isn't. The waiter didn't move. Delia dabbed at her nose and said, "I'm okay now." "Really?" Eventually, the waiter nodded and left. But the air stayed tight. When we got outside, I turned to her. "Why did you say that?" She lit a cigarette. "Say what?" "You know what?" She exhaled. "I don't know. It just came out." "That's not something you just say. People heard you." She looked at me then, eyes glossy. "I don't know, okay?" I felt dizzy. I panicked. "You could ruin my life with something like that." She didn't answer. Just pulled her coat tighter around her shoulders and started walking. I followed, unsure if I was angrier or more afraid. Back at her place, she curled up in bed without another word. I sat on the edge of the mattress, staring at the dark. "I've never hit anyone," I said. "I know," she whispered. The next morning, she was back to her usual self, playful, seductive, asking if I wanted pancakes or something less polite. I couldn't tell if she remembered what happened. I couldn't tell if I was supposed to bring it up. I didn't. But the next time her nose bled, I flinched. And she noticed. "You think I'm dangerous," she said softly. "I think I don't know what's real with you." She laughed. "That's fair. I don't either sometimes." We drifted. She stopped texting first. I skipped plans. I started sleeping with my phone on silent, then off, then across the room. I had dreams where she was standing over me, blood dripping from her nose onto my chest, whispering things I couldn't hear. One night, I ran into her at a party. She was with someone else, a tall guy with a shaved head and a hand on her waist. She looked radiant. She saw me, smiled faintly, then turned away. I left early. Weeks passed. Then one afternoon, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a Polaroid. Grainy. Faded. It was me and her, sitting on her fire escape, laughing. She had a tissue pressed to her nose. I was holding a beer. On the back, someone had written, "Proof you didn't." I burned it. Now, when I see couples arguing on the street, I wonder what's beneath it. Which version of the story we're not hearing? Which words are real, and which are performance, panic, or something darker? I don't date much anymore. Not seriously. When someone touches their nose, I tense. When someone raises their voice in public, I scan for exits. It's not fear. Not exactly. It's the knowledge that someone can look you in the eye, smile, kiss you, and still say something that can shatter your life, just because they felt like it. The day of the run, the Charles River looked like glass, still, stretched, and catching the light like it had something to prove. I signed up for the 10K on a dare from myself. After weeks of doom scrolling and takeout, I wanted a reset. Something to sweat out the stagnation. The Stride Kind charity event promised a digital wellness ecosystem, whatever that meant, and a free tech shirt made from recycled ocean plastic. I picked up my packet at a pop-up booth in Back Bay. Inside were the usual goodies, bib, pins, coupons, but also a wristband with a square chip embedded in the clasp. "This logs your pace, heart rate, and route," said the guy behind the table, handing me a brochure. "Sync it with the Stride Kind app, and you'll unlock personalized coaching, motivation recordings, even post-run breath work." He was tall, lean, in a hoodie with the Stride Kind logo, a minimalist wave with a heart inside it. His name tag read Renzo. "Is this one of those apps that tells me I'm dying when I miss a run?" I asked, half joking. He laughed. "Only if your soul's dying too." I raised an eyebrow. That was weirdly hot. He grinned. "You'd be surprised how many people say that." We talked a little longer than necessary. He offered a demo of the app, guided runs, biometric feedback, even a mindful cool-down, narrated by someone who sounded like a sleepier version of Timothée Chalamet. I scanned the QR code, downloaded the app, and synced the wristband. "See you at the finish line," Renzo said, voice low and playful. I ran the 10K the next morning, heart pounding, pace steady, legs burning in the best way. Every kilometer, the app buzzed with encouragement. "You're stronger than yesterday. Tap into your breath. You are your own finish line." It was cheesy, but it worked. I crossed the finish line breathless and proud. Renzo found me in the crowd and handed me a coconut water. "You crushed it," he said. "Your BPM stayed stable the entire final mile." "That's rare. You're tracking that?" He nodded, tapping his phone. "Just performance data. Helps us calibrate your next run." I didn't question it. That night, the app congratulated me with a badge called Woke Warrior and pushed a playlist titled Burn Plus Rise. I clicked on it. The music was dark, pulsing. Halfway through, a voiceover started, something about grit, discipline, and eliminating ideological clutter. Weird. The next day, I noticed a new tab on the app, Awareness Streams. It offered high-performance thought content. Curious, I opened it. The videos were slick. The thumbnails looked like TED Talks. But the titles got dense fast. Biopower and the Fall of the Soft Mind. Purity Metrics in Urban Planning. One clip featured a man ranting about how digital sovereignty required rejecting democracy as an obsolete algorithm. I backed out of the tab. Later, on Instagram, I started seeing ads for nootropics and tactical gear. A bio-optimization retreat in Montana. An influencer selling body-first ideologies with phrases like, "Train your blood. Train your beliefs." I checked my privacy settings. The Stride Kind app had access to everything: location, contacts, health data, even microphone access. I uninstalled it. That night, an email arrived. Subject: "Your optimization journey is just beginning." Inside, a message from Renzo, or someone using his name. "You've unlocked an elite threshold. Don't quit now. Your data proves you're a candidate for Phase 2. "Phase 2? I replied. "What the hell is Phase 2? No answer. I posted about it online. A few runners messaged me privately. One said her phone kept playing motivation tracks, even when the app was closed. Another said she got a job ad from a discipline-first startup 2 days after syncing her wristband. I searched Stride Kind plus metadata, and found a Reddit thread titled Running or Recruiting. People were asking the same questions. Complaints about biometric data being sold. About political content targeting users with certain heart rate patterns. About performance coaching that veered into ideological conditioning. I went cold. I emailed StrideKind. No reply. I tried to log back into the app. My account was locked. A message flashed across the login screen. You already know where to go. Now run. I threw the wristband in the trash. The next day, I got a text from an unknown number. Don't lose momentum. We're watching your curve. I blocked the number. I reset my phone. I deleted every health app I'd ever downloaded. I didn't run for 2 weeks. When I finally laced up again, I left my phone at home and ran without music. Just my breath, my pulse, my own damn rhythm. No tech, no coach, no curve to chase. Just me in the street. Because sometimes the finish line isn't about performance. It's about reclaiming the run. Cashin ordered mezcal like he'd invented it. We met on a Tuesday night, slow and slurred, the kind of night where the city feels like it's exhaling. The bar was tucked into a basement off Delancey, all candlelight and velvet booths. He wore a black shirt, unbuttoned just enough, with sleeves rolled to his forearms and a laugh that landed somewhere between smooth and dangerous. I liked him immediately. Too much, probably. He didn't ask questions the way most men do. He asked like he was already imagining the answers. What makes you feel alive? Would you rather be worshipped or feared? Have you ever kissed someone just to ruin them? I laughed, maybe too loud. You ask that on all your first dates? Only the ones that matter. His hand brushed my thigh under the table. Not by accident. We talked about books we never finished, places we'd pretended to live, people we'd almost loved. He said he didn't believe in fate, but he believed in signals. I asked what kind of signals. He just looked at me and said, "This." We left the bar just before 1 a.m., high on smoke and something unspoken. The air outside tasted metallic, like rain that hadn't landed yet. The streets were mostly empty, just a few cabs sliding past and the glow of neon signs bleeding onto the sidewalk. He slipped his jacket over my bare shoulders. "Cold?" he asked. "Not with you," I said, and hated how much I meant it. We walked slowly, his fingers brushing mine, then lacing them together. A quiet kind of claiming. I let him lead. When we reached the corner, Orchard and Stanton, he paused. "I know a shortcut," he said. "Shortcut to what?" "To wherever you want the night to go." He turned down a side alley without waiting for my answer. I hesitated. But you know how it is. When someone makes you feel chosen, your body forgets to be cautious. I followed. The alley was narrow, framed by brick walls slick with condensation. A single flickering light overhead made shadows stretch long and strange. Somewhere in the distance, a siren wailed and died. He stopped near a fire escape and turned to face me. His eyes were darker now, hungry. "I've been thinking about kissing you since the first sip," he said. "So kiss me," I whispered. He did. It was slow and firm, one hand gripping the back of my neck, the other sliding down my spine. I pressed into him, drunk on touch, breath fast, hips tilted forward. His mouth tasted like smoke and lime, and something bitter underneath. His hand dropped to my waist, then lower. I gasped. "Here." He smiled against my mouth. "You like dark corners." I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. We were a tangle of teeth and breath and fingertips, the kind of kiss that feels like falling down a flight of stairs and liking the landing. I reached for his belt. He caught my wrist. "Not yet," he said. Then something changed. The air shifted. His grip tightened. "Do you trust me?" he asked. "Enough," I said, half laughing. He let go of my wrist, reached into his coat, and pulled out the knife. I didn't have time to scream. The blade slid between my ribs like it belonged there. For a second, I didn't even feel pain, just shock, sharp and bright. I stumbled backward, hand to my side, eyes wide. He didn't run. He stepped close, tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, and whispered, "You said you liked danger." My knees buckled. He caught me, not gently but efficiently, lowered me to the ground, then walked away like he was late for a cab. I lay there, blood pooling under my ribs, the taste of him still on my lips. The flickering light above me buzzed once, then died. Everything else followed. I woke up in the hospital. Collapsed lung. Internal bleeding. No ID on the attacker. My phone was gone. No prints. Just a security camera that caught a blur of black leaving the alley. No one believed it was a date. Not the cops. Not the nurse. Not even my sister. They asked why I followed him. Why I didn't scream. Why I went down the alley. I didn't answer. How do you explain that you wanted to be touched more than you wanted to be safe? I replayed it constantly. The drink, the kiss, the blade. The way he looked at me when he did it. Like he was doing me a favor. Like I'd asked for it. And no, I have not dated since then. Still too fresh in my eyes. I've always been a bit of a homebody. Socializing in real life drains me faster than a dead phone battery, and crowded places make me feel like I'm suffocating. So like a lot of people in their early 20s at the time, I found comfort in online spaces, specifically gaming. Back in 2015, I spent most of my free time on an online MMORPG called Mythspire, a sprawling fantasy universe where I could be anyone I wanted. It was a place where my real-life awkwardness didn't matter as long as I knew how to raid a dungeon or lead a team through a siege. I had a decent group of friends I gamed with regularly, mostly people I met through forums or Discord, but one night that all changed when I got a message from someone new. Her screen name was Moonhalix92. She'd posted a question in the general chat about a tricky mechanic in one of the game's newer quests. No one responded. I felt bad, so I messaged her directly and walked her through it. That one message turned into a full-blown conversation. She was funny, quick-witted, and seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. She said her name was Haley, and that she was also 20, living in Ontario, Canada, just like me. I'd met dozens of people online, but something about her stood out. She didn't rush to impress me. She didn't fish for compliments. She just talked. Every night after that, we'd log in and play together. She picked up the game quickly and soon became one of the strongest players on the server. We fought side by side, laughed about failed missions, and sent each other private messages in between boss fights. Eventually, we started emailing outside the game. She sent me a picture, her holding a sign with my username on it, written in blue marker. In it, she had shoulder-length brown hair, a heart-shaped face, and a slight smirk like she was in on a joke I hadn't heard yet. I sent her one in return, posing with a goofy grin and a paper sign that said, "For Moonhalix92 smiling face with sunglasses." I started falling for her, hard. We talked about everything, our childhoods, our fears, how we both hated math in high school. She told me about a rare joint condition that made it hard for her to work or attend school full-time. That's why she spent so much time online. She said her parents were super overprotective, and the only time she really left home was when her mom dropped her off at the library to use the computers. It explained why she didn't have a phone, why she never used voice chat, why she stuck to messaging. I wanted to hear her voice just once, but I didn't push. She said she was shy, and I respected that. Eventually, I told her I loved her. I didn't know if it was romantic or just a deep connection, but it felt real. She said she felt the same way but had been scared to say it. That night, I told my gaming group about her, the ones I played with regularly. Most were happy for me, but one guy, Seth, was skeptical. He was older, more experienced in online circles, and didn't trust faceless profiles. He pointed out that we'd never talked on the phone, never video chatted, and I'd never met her in person. I brushed it off as paranoia, but part of me started to wonder. One night, I convinced Haley to join our group for a co-op raid. She agreed, reluctantly. Everyone was excited to meet her, especially Seth. But from the start, it was tense. She stuck to text chat while we all used voice. Seth asked her questions, some innocent, some not so much. Where she lived. Her favorite books. The kind of stuff that could trip someone up if they were faking it. She answered everything calmly, but I could tell she was rattled. After the session, I messaged her to make sure she was okay. She said she didn't like Seth and didn't want to play with him again. I understood but told her he was just trying to protect me. She said she didn't need protecting and that she was real. Weeks passed. She and I kept growing closer. I wanted to meet her in person, and she didn't say no, but she kept stalling. Maybe soon, she'd say. I'm just not ready. Then something strange happened. One night, Seth and I were playing a trivia game with Haley and a few others. One of the questions led to an inside joke, something only Seth, Max, another friend, and I would know. But Haley laughed at it and made a perfect callback like she was part of the joke. I froze. No way could she have known about that. I hadn't told her. Later, Seth called me and said, "Man, I don't want to be that guy, but that was weird. Are you sure you told her about that joke?" I couldn't remember. Maybe I had. Maybe she guessed. But the seed of doubt was planted. The next day, I decided to test her. I made up a story about a childhood pet that I never had and told it to her like it was an emotional memory. She responded immediately, with a reference to something that would have only made sense if she already knew the truth. I confronted her. She denied it at first, then got defensive. She said I was paranoid and that I didn't trust her. I told her I just wanted to meet, to hear her voice, to make this real. She said I was pushing too hard. Then, she said something that chilled me. I've loved you for years, even before you met me. I asked what she meant. She wouldn't explain. Just kept typing frantic messages, talking about how I ruined everything and how she had been waiting for the right time. Then she said it. You should have left things the way they were. Now I don't want to live anymore. And then she disappeared. No more messages. No login. No emails. I panicked. I tried everything to find her online. Social media, old forums, anything. But her real name didn't bring up anyone who matched. It was like she never existed. I started to wonder, had I pushed her too hard? Had I driven someone to do something irreversible? I told my friends everything. Seth said it was manipulation. Max, on the other hand, got weirdly defensive, said Seth was being cruel and that I should respect Haley's privacy. That's when it all clicked. A year earlier, Max had confessed that he had feelings for me. I'd told him I wasn't interested and that I was gay. He'd taken it badly, disappeared for a while, then slowly came back into the group like nothing had happened. But now, his protectiveness of Haley made sense. Too much sense. I confronted Seth with my suspicions. He didn't hesitate. That night, he messaged Max pretending to be casual, and Max cracked. He admitted it. He had created the Haley persona to get closer to me. Used photos from a girl his sister knew. Crafted the entire backstory. Played me like a violin. And I fell for it. I blocked Max on everything, deleted the game, and buried my face in a pillow until I couldn't cry anymore. I felt stupid, violated, betrayed. I had opened my heart to someone who didn't exist. And worse, he was someone I had trusted. It took me months to recover. I stopped playing online games. I became cautious with new people. I kept my guard up like a fortress, but I never blamed myself for caring. There's a lot I could tell you about my experience with dating apps, but if I had to sum it all up in one word, it would probably be unpredictable. And I don't mean the fun kind of unpredictable, like a cute girl who surprises you with concert tickets or a spontaneous road trip. I mean the kind of unpredictable that has you checking your locks at night and Googling how to file a restraining order in Nevada. Let me rewind a bit. A few years ago, I was living in Las Vegas, working split shifts at a local diner my parents owned near the Arts District. I was in my mid-20s, out to my close friends, but hadn't yet had the talk with my folks. I was constantly juggling my job and a small but growing freelance gig editing videos for YouTubers. So, yeah, between that and my social anxiety, I wasn't exactly the type to meet guys at bars or clubs. Enter Bumble. Or Grindr. Or maybe it was Tinder. Honestly, I had them all at one point. I wasn't looking for my soulmate, just someone cool to talk to, maybe get dinner with, and see where things went. That's how I met Greg. Well, Greggy, as he insisted everyone call him. He was older than me by about 8 years. I figured, okay, maybe he'd be more mature, emotionally steady, less likely to ghost me after 3 days of texting. He wasn't. Greggy and I matched one night around 9 p.m. His profile was basic, a few blurry selfies, a mention of working at the post office, and a bunch of emojis. But he seemed friendly when we started chatting. He asked a lot of questions, kept the conversation going, and even complimented my sense of humor, which I appreciated. Then he ruined it in record time. On day 2 of chatting, he said something like, "We should meet tonight. You're cute, and I have a feeling about you." It was already close to 7 p.m. I replied, "Hey, I'm not really into meeting up that fast. I like to get to know someone a little first." I figured he'd take the hint. Greggy did not take the hint. For the next week, he kept pushing for a meetup. Every few hours, I'd get a new message. "So when are we hanging out? Still thinking about that cute face of yours. What are you doing right now?" I tried to change the subject, lighten the tone, even joke that I wasn't the spontaneous type. But he kept coming back around like a boomerang. Finally, I told him we weren't on the same page, and that I didn't think we should keep talking. That's when things got ugly. He called me a tease, said I was wasting his time. Then he sent a series of messages that I won't repeat here, not because they were explicit, but because they were just gross. The kind of stuff that makes you want to take a shower. I blocked him. Done, right? Wrong. 5 days later, it was a Saturday afternoon, and I was working the register at my parents' diner, the Lucky Fork, a cozy little place tucked just off Fremont Street. It was the lunch rush, and the place was packed. I was halfway through ringing up an order when I heard someone say my name. I looked up, and there he was, Greggy, standing there in a Hawaiian shirt, holding a menu, and grinning like a maniac. I froze. I hadn't told him where I worked. I never mentioned the diner or even hinted that my family owned it. I was careful with that stuff. And yet, here he was. "I'll have the meatloaf special," he said casually, as if we were old friends. "And a chocolate shake." I rang up the order using muscle memory, because my brain had short-circuited. I mumbled a thank you, and passed the slip to my mom, who was working the kitchen. Then I ducked into the back and pretended I had to use the bathroom. 5 minutes later, my mom knocked on the door. "You okay in there?" she asked. "Not really," I said. "Who's that guy at the counter?" She paused. "He says he's your boyfriend." I opened the door like I'd just seen a ghost. "What?" "Yeah," she said, her brow furrowed. "He's been telling me all about how you two met online, and how you're madly in love, and how this is your favorite place to eat." I wanted to throw up. After calming down and explaining that I barely knew the guy, my mom raised her eyebrows and said, "Well, he sure knows a lot about you." Turns out, Greggy had been paying attention during our brief chats. He'd remembered little details I'd mentioned, what college I went to, what I studied, my favorite band, and used them to spin this elaborate fantasy relationship. I went back out and told him to leave. He just smiled and said, "I thought it'd be cute to surprise you." I blocked his number again, flagged his dating profile, and tried to forget it. But of course, it didn't end there. 3 days later, I found an envelope in my mailbox. No stamp, no return address, just my name written in red ink, with a heart sticker sealing the flap. Inside were 4 handwritten pages. Not a letter, not even a confession. It was fanfiction, about me, and Greggy. It was the most disturbing thing I've ever read. In it, he described our relationship, from our first kiss to our made-up arguments to the time we made love on the diner counter after hours. The story ended with a line that still gives me chills. "And when I'm finished, I'll toss you out like all the others. No one will ever find your remains." I took the letter to the local precinct and sat for nearly an hour waiting for someone to take me seriously. When I finally spoke to an officer, he skimmed the pages, asked a few questions, and said they'd keep an eye on the area. That was it. No restraining order. No follow-up. Just keep an eye out. For the next 2 months, I lived in fear. Every time a car slowed down near my house, I peeked through the blinds. Every time the diner door opened, I felt my stomach twist. But Greggy never came back. Not to the diner. Not to my door. The final straw came about a year later, 13 months, to be exact. I had just finished my degree and landed a new job editing content for a production company in LA. I was finally feeling like myself again. Then I got a card in the mail. Same handwriting. Same red ink. The front said, "Congratulations." No name. No message. Just that one word. I didn't call the cops. I didn't cry. I just burned it. There's a lot of talk online about how dating apps are dangerous for women. And they are. But men can be targets too. I never thought I'd have my own stalker. I never thought I'd get a hand-delivered fanfic about my own murder. But here we are. About 8 years ago, I went through a stretch of my life that I can only describe as hollow. Maybe even pathetic, but that's hindsight. Back then, it just felt like survival. I was 32, living alone in a 1-bedroom apartment just outside downtown Denver, Colorado. I'd had a couple of long-term relationships before, but the most recent one, the one I thought was the one, came to a screeching, soul-crushing end. His name was Aaron. We were together for 5 years. He was the kind of guy who knew his way around a kitchen, always had the perfect Spotify playlist for road trips, and could fall asleep anywhere. I thought I'd marry him. I had imagined our wedding in Estes Park, maybe a honeymoon in Italy. But one night, over dinner at Root Down, he told me he couldn't do it anymore. Said he wasn't ready. That he needed time to figure himself out. A week later, I found out he was seeing someone else. Someone younger, thinner, and probably less obsessed with Harry Potter and true crime documentaries. It was a bitter pill, and I swallowed it with wine, takeout, and far too many late-night replays of The Office. But Aaron isn't the story here. He's just the wound that left the scar. A couple of months after that breakup, I found myself spiraling. I wasn't looking for love, I was looking for distraction. I signed up for one of those dating sites, Maybe it was OkCupid, maybe Plenty of Fish. I honestly can't remember. They all blend together after a while. The matches were a mess. Guys who listed things like no tall chicks or no girls who geek out on Harry Potter in their bios. I'm 5 feet 10 inches and have a Deathly Hallows tattoo, so it was a hard pass from me. After a few weeks of nothing, I stumbled across a profile that stopped me mid-scroll. His name was Yarrick. He had long black hair, wore vintage pop culture shirts in all his pictures, and had this easy, crooked smile that didn't feel forced. He was taller than me, which was nice but not essential. What really struck me was how genuine his profile felt. He talked about music, animal shelters, and how he still missed playing in his old band. I liked his profile, and to my surprise, he liked me back. I messaged him first, saying something like, "Your hair is better than mine. What's your secret?" He replied within minutes, joking that he'd made a pact with the devil in exchange for eternally perfect conditioner. I laughed out loud. That's how it started. We talked every night for the next 2 weeks. Then we moved to phone calls. He had this warm, melodic voice, like he could have been a radio DJ or a lounge singer. He told me about his old band, how they used to play late-night sets at local dive bars in Boulder. He'd worked at a vet clinic recently, mostly sitting with overnight animals, comforting them after surgeries or helping those who were too sick to be alone. I swear, I could feel myself falling for him through the phone. But there was always this little voice in my head whispering, "Why is someone like him single?" He was funny, caring, attractive. It didn't make sense. So one night I asked. He paused, then finally said, "It's complicated." Red flag? Maybe. But I was in deep. I gently pressed him for more, and he eventually confessed that he was married, but separated. "It's over," he said. "We're just working through logistics. Not ideal, but not a deal breaker." I'd been there too. Relationships can be messy. I figured if he was being honest with me, maybe he deserved a chance. We finally agreed to meet in person. Saturday morning. Coffee at Aviano on 2nd Avenue. I wore my favorite oversized sweater and jeans. When I walked in, he was already there, tucked into a corner with 2 coffees on the table like he'd guessed my order. He looked exactly like his photos. Not slightly off. Not 10 years older. Just him. I was relieved. We talked for hours. About movies, our favorite concerts, the worst dates we'd ever had. He made me laugh until my stomach hurt. I hadn't felt that light in months. At one point, I looked at him and thought, maybe this could be something. As the sun crept higher in the sky, I mentioned I should probably head home soon. He nodded, then glanced down at the floor like he was trying to summon courage. I tilted my head and asked if everything was okay. "I actually need a favor," he said, looking sheepish. "I don't have a car right now. Is there any chance you could give me a ride?" I hesitated, not because I didn't trust him, but because it caught me off guard. I hadn't seen him arrive, so I didn't realize he hadn't driven. But he looked genuinely embarrassed. "Sure," I said. "It's no problem." He thanked me, and we walked to my car. As we drove, he gave me directions. Left here, right at the light, another left. We made small talk, and then he got quiet. I asked about the separation again. That's when he dropped the bomb. "We're not technically separated yet," he said. "I mean, we're not divorced. We're in a weird place." My stomach dropped. My fingers tightened around the steering wheel. "So you're still married?" I asked. He nodded. "Yeah, but it's done. There's no fixing it." I didn't respond. I just kept driving, letting the silence fill the car. He started talking more about how things went wrong, how he felt trapped, how he'd made mistakes. I wasn't really listening. I was too busy berating myself for getting pulled in. Then he said, "Turn right up here. Into that lot." I looked up and realized we were pulling into a police station. I parked and turned to him, completely confused. "Why are we here?" He looked at the building, then back at me. "I'm sorry," he said softly. "I really liked you. You're a beautiful person. I wish I met you under different circumstances." "What are you talking about?" He sighed. "I'm going in to confess something. Something bad. I didn't mean for you to get caught up in this." My mouth went dry. What did you do?" He paused, eyes glistening. "It was an accident. I never meant for it to happen. But it did. And I have to own it." He opened his door and stepped out, then gently closed it behind him. I watched, frozen, as he walked into the station. He approached the front desk, spoke to someone, and within minutes, a uniformed officer came to meet him. They talked briefly, then the officer handcuffed him and led him through a side door. I just sat there numb. A few minutes later, another officer came out and knocked on my window. I rolled it down, heart hammering. "Ma'am," he said, "how do you know the man you just dropped off?" I stammered. "We were on a date, our first date." He raised an eyebrow. "You weren't aware of his situation?" "No," I said. "He said he was separated. That was all I knew." He nodded somberly, then said, "He just confessed to the murder of his wife." The world stopped spinning. I couldn't breathe. I answered their questions, told them everything I knew. They took my name, my number, and eventually let me go. As I drove home, the full weight of what had just happened began to settle in. I had coffee with a murderer. I gave him a ride. I laughed with him. I complimented his hair. I still don't know if our date was just a ploy for one last moment of normalcy, or if he genuinely liked me and wanted something real before facing whatever consequences lay ahead. Maybe he needed someone to see him as human one last time. But the scariest part, he didn't seem like a monster. He wasn't creepy or aggressive. He was charming, thoughtful, sweet. Just a guy. My name's Delora. Most people just call me D. I'm 53 now, but this story happened when I was about 49, just a few years after my divorce was finalized and my youngest son had started high school. I won't sugarcoat it. Rebuilding your life after your marriage ends, especially when it's been decades, is like learning how to walk again with someone else's legs. You don't know where to begin, what's normal anymore, or how to tell if someone's being genuine or just polite. I married young, got pregnant at 17, and our families basically pushed us into a wedding. We were kids trying to raise a kid, and somehow we made it work for a while. We even had a second son when I was 32, a beautiful, unexpected blessing. My boys, Jalen and Ethan, are 15 years apart, but thick as thieves. They're the best thing I've ever done. But their father? That's a different story. He changed after Ethan was born. Midlife crisis, maybe. Started spending money, like we had a printing press in the basement. I found out later he was fooling around with someone from his office. Or as I like to call her, his hobby with benefits. So I kicked him out. The boys stayed with me and we managed. Barely, but we did. 3 years after the divorce, my oldest son Jalen sat me down one evening over dinner and said, "Mom, you've got to try dating again. You're still beautiful, and you deserve someone who treats you right." I rolled my eyes. "Sweetheart, I barely know how to use the DVR. What makes you think I can handle dating apps?" He laughed, and the next day he helped me create a profile. We kept it simple, just a few photos, a short bio, dog lover, movie addict, raised 2 boys, looking for something real. And that was it. A few days passed with nothing but messages from men who were either 20 years younger or offering to be my sugar baby. Then I got a message from a man named Tommen. He was 56, had 3 kids of his own, and lived about 40 minutes away in Temecula. His wife had passed away a few years prior, and he said he was looking for a fresh start. He seemed kind. We exchanged messages for about 2 weeks, then moved to phone calls. He had a rich, calming voice and an easy laugh that made me feel like I'd known him for years. He asked thoughtful questions, remembered little details. He even asked about Jalen and Ethan, what they liked, how old they were, what kind of music they were into. Few men even wanted to hear that I had kids, let alone ask about them. So I was impressed. After 6 weeks of talking, we decided to meet in person. We chose the Broken Yoke Cafe in San Diego for brunch, neutral ground, public, casual. I wore a denim dress, put on a little lipstick, and tried not to overthink it. He was already there when I arrived, looking just like his photos, tall, slightly graying, soft around the edges. Friendly eyes. We hugged, and then he leaned to the side, looking behind me. "Is your son Ethan with you?" he asked. I blinked. "Oh no, he's at school." Tommen nodded, looking briefly disappointed. Then he chuckled like he was embarrassed, and we sat down. We spent the next hour talking over omelets and coffee. He was charming and polite, though I noticed he kept steering the conversation back to Ethan. He asked about his grades, his interests, whether he played sports or had a girlfriend. At first, I thought it was sweet, but halfway through the meal, it started to feel off. I chalked it up to nerves and brushed it aside. We met up again 5 days later for lunch at the Liberty Public Market. This time, I mentioned Ethan was at his friend's house after school. Again, Tommen seemed disappointed. "I was hoping to meet him," he said with a small frown. I told him there'd be plenty of time for that if things worked out. He smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Fast forward 3 weeks. The local community center I volunteered at was hosting a big spring potluck. I'd already promised to bring Ethan, and since the event was open to the public, I figured it'd be a relaxed way to introduce him to Tommen. I texted the invite, and he was immediately enthusiastic. He showed up with his youngest son, a quiet boy named Nolan, maybe 10 or 11. I welcomed them both and led them inside. Ethan was helping with setup in the back, but when I brought him out, he greeted Tommen with a friendly handshake. Tommen pulled him into a bear hug instead. "Wow, you've got your mom's eyes," he said with a grin. Ethan laughed awkwardly. "Thanks, I guess." At first, I thought it was sweet that they were getting along. But as the evening went on, I noticed something that made my stomach twist. Tommen wasn't talking to me. He was completely focused on Ethan. He asked Ethan about his favorite movies, his favorite foods, what he wanted to be when he grew up. He even asked if he had a girlfriend, right in front of me. Ethan said he was kind of seeing a girl from school. Tommen chuckled. "A cute kid like you? I'm not surprised." I tried to steer the conversation toward his son Nolan, but Tommen barely acknowledged him. Every question I asked was deflected or ignored. It was like I wasn't even there anymore. I decided to take our plates to the kitchen and reset the energy. When I came back, Ethan was gone. I found him in the back room, helping the volunteers clean up. On the drive home, he was quiet. "Something happened?" I asked. After a long pause, he said, "Mom, I don't want you seeing that guy anymore." "Why?" I asked. He hesitated, then said, "Because he asked if I was a virgin." My foot lifted off the gas. "What?" Ethan looked straight ahead, his voice low. He asked me if I'd ever done anything with a girl, or by myself. Then he said if I was ever curious, he'd help me figure it out. I nearly pulled over. My hands were shaking. I wanted to scream. Instead, I drove straight home, told Ethan to go inside, and sat in the car trying to breathe. Then I called Tommen. He picked up on the second ring, cheerful as ever. "I need to know what you said to my son," I said, my voice like ice. He went silent, then said, "I think you're overreacting." "I'm not," I said. "Don't ever contact me again. If I see you near my son, I'll call the police." He tried to protest, but I hung up. The next morning, I blocked his number, reported him through the dating app, and called a lawyer friend to ask about restraining orders. I didn't have enough for one, but I still filed a report with a local officer just in case. I never heard from Tommen again. But for months, I kept looking over my shoulder. I double-checked doors, slept with the porch light on. And every time Ethan left the house, I reminded him not to talk to strangers. It took me a long time to try dating again. I was scared. Not just for me, but for my son. Because this man hadn't wanted me. He wanted access to my child. It started with a ping. Not a loud one. Not even alarming. Just a quiet little chime on my phone that said, "Unknown accessory detected near you. This item has been moving with you for a while." I was sitting in my car, engine running, waiting for the coffee shop drive-through to inch forward. Still half asleep. I saw the notification and thought, weird. Probably someone's Bluetooth speaker. But it wasn't. It was something else. Something planted. And it led me back to Anessa. We matched in mid-June. I remember because it was the same week I decided to take a break from dating apps. And then, of course, I matched with someone actually interesting. Anessa had this kind of effortless edge to her. Her photos weren't over-edited or posed. One was a blurry shot of her laughing at a house party. Another showed her tuning a guitar. In her bio she wrote, "I like rainy nights, horror movies, and people who don't flinch." We messaged for 2 days before meeting up. She was sharp, funny, a little dark in a way I liked. We joked about which of us would turn out to be the serial killer. She said, "If I were one, I'd be the kind that leaves clues." I said, "I'd never get caught." We liked that about each other. Our first date was drinks at a rooftop bar downtown. She wore this deep green jacket that matched her eyes and boots that made her look like she could either break my heart or my kneecaps. Maybe both. We talked for hours. About old movies, weird dreams, the uncanny feeling of being awake at 3 a.m. and not knowing why. She leaned in close when she laughed. Touched my arm when I made her smile. Told me I had still water energy. I didn't know what that meant, but I liked how she said it. She invited me back to her place. I said yes. It wasn't anything wild. We hung out on her couch. Played each other songs we liked. She showed me a sketchbook full of ink drawings, mostly faces, all of them expressive, some downright disturbing. She said she liked watching people and drawing what she thought they were feeling, but not saying. One of the faces looked eerily like mine. I pointed it out. She just smiled and said, "I draw fast." Around midnight, I said I should head home. She walked me to the door and kissed me slow. "Text me when you get back," she said, "so I know you're safe." At the time, I thought that was sweet. Now I wonder if it was something else. We went out 3 more times over the next 2 weeks. Each time, she asked more questions. "Where do you usually hang out? What gym do you go to? Do you take the same route to work every day?" I told myself she was just curious, attentive, maybe a little intense. I didn't see the warning signs. Not yet. The last time I saw her, she was different. We met at a bookstore cafe. She seemed distant, tired. Her eyes had this hollow pull, like she'd been up all night thinking about something she couldn't say. I asked if she was okay. She said, "I just get attached too easily." Then she added, "But I'm working on it." We hugged. She didn't kiss me. I texted her the next day. No response. I figured she was ghosting, that it was over. I moved on. Then came the ping. That quiet little notification that said something was following me. I tapped on it. My phone brought up a map. A red that had been with me for the past 2 hours. From my apartment, to the gas station, to the coffee shop. I opened the Find My app. It showed a device labeled Unknown AirTag. I'd never owned one. I searched my backpack. Nothing. My coat. Empty. Then I checked under the passenger seat of my car. There it was. A white AirTag, taped to the underside with black electrical tape. I just stared at it for a second, cold blooming in my chest. Whoever placed it there had known exactly where I was for days. Maybe longer. I took it to the police. They asked if I had any idea who could have planted it. I said I'd only gone on a few dates recently. Gave them Inessa's name. They asked for her last name. I didn't know it. She wasn't on social media. Her Tinder account had been deleted. The phone number she used? Disconnected. The address I'd driven to? That apartment was vacant. Had been for weeks. My stomach dropped. I'd been to that place 3 times. Sat on the couch. Drank wine. Used the bathroom. None of it was hers. I started to spiral. What was real? What had I been talking to? Why had she wanted to know my schedule, my routes, the layout of my life? You can learn a lot about someone by what they keep in their drawers. Not the kitchen kind. Not the office kind. The bedside kind. That's where people keep the stuff that doesn't always come up in conversation. The things they don't put on display, but still keep close. And sometimes those drawers say more than the person ever will. That's how I learned Nico wasn't who I thought he was. Or maybe he was, and just didn't want me to see it yet. I met Nico on Tinder in early February. It was one of those rare weeks where San Diego decided it wanted to pretend to be gloomy for a change. Cloud cover, wind, the kind of weather people here act surprised by even though it happens every year. His photos stood out, black and white portraits, mostly. One of him sitting in front of a mirror, camera in hand. Another of him leaning against a brick wall, almost smirking. His bio read, "Photographer. Quiet until I'm not. Let's skip small talk." I liked that. We matched the same day. He messaged first. "Nico, you look like someone who doesn't waste time." He was right. We met for coffee the next afternoon, and it turned into dinner. He had this calm, steady way of talking, like every word had already been thought through. No filler. No nervous laughter. Just direct eye contact and questions that landed a little deeper than expected. What do you like that you're embarrassed to admit? Do you ever pretend to be someone else just to see if people notice? I didn't know if he was flirting or analyzing me. Maybe both. By the end of the night, I wanted to see him again. We went out 2 more times that week. Drinks, then a walk by the harbor. Then a late dinner where we shared a dessert, and he brushed a crumb off my lip like he'd been waiting for an excuse to touch me. Things progressed naturally. You know that moment when you're kissing someone, and everything else just fades out? That's where we were. On his couch, the windows open, the city breathing outside. He pulled me into his lap. I laughed against his neck. He kissed behind my ear and asked, "Want to move this to the bedroom?" I said yes. His room was minimal but curated. A few framed photos, a dark blanket folded perfectly at the edge of the bed. The only splash of color came from the red candle flickering on his nightstand. We were caught in that phase between laughter and heat, when everything is still light but the air is shifting. We kissed. He touched the back of my neck. I could feel the tension building, the kind that makes you forget where you are for a second. Then I reached for the drawer. I wasn't snooping. I just asked if he had protection. He nodded toward the nightstand. I opened it without thinking, and there it was. On top, a black box of condoms. Underneath that, a leather collar, a leash, and a red silicone ball gag. I froze, hands in the drawer, heart suddenly louder than it had been a second ago. I didn't say anything right away, just stared at the items. They weren't hidden. They weren't even buried. Just there, like they'd been waiting. I turned to him slowly, still holding the drawer open. He was sitting on the edge of the bed now, watching me. Calm. His shirt was half undone, his expression unreadable. I held up the collar, unsure if I was asking a question or just showing him the proof. He looked at me and said evenly, "That's not mine." Now, there's a specific kind of silence that happens after someone says something like that. It's not the same as awkward silence. It's heavier, slower, like the air itself is trying to figure out what to do. I blinked. "You keep stuff that isn't yours in your nightstand." He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stood up, gently took the collar from my hand, placed it back in the drawer, and closed it. Then he said, "Let's not do this tonight." It wasn't defensive. It wasn't panicked. It was calm. Too calm. I left a few minutes later. No yelling. No confrontation. Just a quiet goodbye, and the feeling that I'd stepped into something I didn't understand. He didn't text that night, or the next day. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was leftover from an ex. Maybe he was into things he hadn't told me about yet. Maybe it was a conversation he didn't want to have without trust. But the way he said it, "That's not mine," just kept echoing. Because it didn't sound like denial. It sounded like a statement, a boundary, a warning. 4 days later, he texted, "Nico, sorry if I made things weird. You didn't do anything wrong." I didn't know how to respond. I typed and retyped a few replies. Eventually I settled on, "Me, do you want to talk about it?" No answer. But he sent a photo. One of his black and white portraits. A woman sitting on the floor, knees drawn to her chest. Back to the camera. Around her neck, barely visible in the shadows, was a collar. The same one. I stared at it for a long time. Then I put my phone down and didn't reply. A week passed. I didn't hear from him again. I'd mostly moved on. I told myself it was just a weird moment. That maybe he was into something I wasn't. That it didn't mean anything. Then I walked into a small gallery in North Park one afternoon. Just killing time before meeting a friend for tacos. I didn't even know Nico's work was being shown there. But there it was. A whole wall of his photos. And in the center, framed, lit, unmistakable, was the same woman from the picture he'd sent me. Only this time, her face was visible. And she looked like me. Not exactly, but close enough to make my chest tighten. Same hair. Same posture. Same curve in the jaw. The title card read, "Subject Unknown, 2021. I left without finishing the exhibit. The next morning, I found something on my doorstep. A plain envelope. No name. Inside, a photo. Of me. In Nico's apartment. Standing beside his bed. Drawer open. Holding the collar. The photo was taken from behind. From the hallway. I don't know who took it. I don't know if the woman in the portrait was real, or if she was just another part of his collection. I don't know what Nico really wanted that night, or what would have happened if I hadn't opened the drawer. But I haven't been on Tinder since, and I don't open drawers in other people's homes anymore. I have a few stories actually, but I'll tell you about one that I haven't told many people outside of my circle about. I'll try to keep it somewhat short though, even though I'm notoriously terrible at doing that. Anyways, let's move on. This happened back in early 2018. I was a horny 18-year-old at the time, and I'd been on this weird hybrid social media / dating / kink site for a few months. I made a status that was kinda stupid. I forget what I even said, but this one older chick, 46, from the Northwest somewhere sent me a PM about it and mentioned she always enjoyed my sense of humor and wanted to be friends, but she understood if I didn't want to talk. I told her it's okay, and that I appreciated the compliment, and we got to talking innocently for a while. Just some really low-key stuff, honestly. I can't remember everything obviously since it was a couple years ago, and that part of our conversation didn't stick out from all the others I'd had on the app. It didn't take very long for things to get sexual, and being an attention-starved 18-year-old dude with some pretty low standards and not really knowing exactly what I wanted out of a romantic relationship, I guess I kinda just let it happen. We did some ERP, erotic roleplay, together, and it turned out we had a few of the same major kinks, so it was fun. After we had enough of a bond over that shit, we talked about each other's lives and situations a bit to get closer. That's where things started getting a little weird. So she told me that she had 2 sons, both of them older than me, but one was a lot closer in age. I mean, that's not really weird by any means, but she mentioned that she had a big thing for guys who were younger, and she made sure to put emphasis on how much younger she was into. It didn't really sit well with me at 18 that this chick was into guys around her son's ages, but I let it slide. Horny and confused are two emotions that don't really mix very well, especially in younger dudes. It was extremely conflicting, but like I said, I didn't really make it into a big deal at the time. I can't remember the order of these next two events, but I'll try my best. A few days later, she asks me, "King, I need to know right now, are you really 18? So I told her I was. She said, "I just wanted to be sure, I've been lied to before. A guy told me once a couple years ago that he was 18, but after we had sex I found out he was really 15-inch, and at that point I'm thinking, okay, maybe he did lie, but it's still pretty weird regardless." I think at that point it was starting to register with my hormonal-ass brain that something wasn't right. I was still dumb about it though, and I didn't break any contact, since at that point in time I was thinking I'd actually be able to sway my parents into taking me up to where she lived because of a college there that I wanted to check out, and maybe I'd get lucky one night. That's a long story in and of itself, but I don't feel like explaining my history with college and all that shit on here, so I won't. She messaged me later and said something along the lines of, "My entire week has been unproductive. I can't think about work at all. I've been thinking to myself, I want King and lots of attention, lol." I got some creepy obsessive vibes from that. I don't know what I said in response, but we eventually had another RP where she told me, "You're making me want to kidnap you so bad right now. If you come here I don't think I'll ever let you leave." Yeah, that would have been endearing if it was coming from someone who I didn't think was actually going to try and go through with it unironically. The whole thing was just getting to be too much. The obsession, the creepy messages, the fact that she fucked a dude below the age of consent, etc., etc. A few days after I was contemplating telling her I wasn't interested, she tried to bait me in further by saying, "You know, King, all the other 18-year-olds I've met have seemed more like kids than adults. Is it weird that I see you more as a full-grown man?" And looking back on it, in cases where the main goal is sex and not a relationship, I should have realized people who say that tend to be predatory as hell. I broke contact about a week later, and I haven't heard of her since then. I'm 21 now. I haven't tried to think too much about her. A few years back, my first GF broke up with me and cheated on me, so I was down, and after a few months I tried dating apps. I am 27, and back then I was 20, so Tinder etc. was not that huge of a thing back then and here in Europe. Well, I met someone after a few tries and we dated and got together after a few dates. It all went really well in the beginning because we spent time together and we had spare time. Also, we both wanted the best for each other. After approximately 2 months it all went downhill. Really fast. She wanted me to spend 8 days a week with her. She got jealous over all of my friends. For example, I met an old classmate after a few years, which is male. No offense here, I am a straight guy FYI. And she started writing and calling me like crazy, and I asked if anything happened. She said no, and then I was wondering if we can't speak later. Well, she had a fight with me over the pick the friend, and I took of our reunion, and having a nice day. She also got abusive and made fun of me and my hobbies. Once I was helping out in a small festivity in my town, and made good money for working 3 days straight. She called me every 5 minutes what I am doing, and when I come home. I then told her I am at work and I will turn off my phone now, because she is annoying as hell, and I am super busy. She insisted on coming to the place I worked with a friend of her. I said alright, but I don't have time to come out, just to say hi. She and her friends started drinking and 2 random dudes tried to hit them up. She called me again billions of times. I was literally freaking out and telling her if she doesn't stop I let security take her away from here. After work I was going to her place and wanted to ask what this all was about and why she would drink with a stranger. And then she, her girlfriend, and the 2 strangers are coming, and the 2 dudes start shouting my name and all, and I was so pissed off I wanted to leave, and she started a fight that they didn't hit up on her. I was like, yeah, for sure, and if I would have done that, she would have let hell loose. She said it would be different if I do that. The best things are yet to come. She locked me up once in her room and flat. I was shouting for help and called my brother, and she threatened me. I was never get physical or anything, but I was needing help. And after that I broke up with her. I told her mother I can't bring up any more energy for this, and I wish the best for her. She understood me and was such a kind person. Well, and my then ex threatened me to kill herself. She wrote me everywhere possible and asked me to come back. I told her one final time I won't, and why in a kind way. She wrote me she takes drugs because her friends tried to help her to overcome me. I was telling her that doesn't make things better, and that her friends are shitty if they support you like that. Now, here we go. Only a few weeks after that, I was away with a group of friends eating and drinking in a pub. It was a super funny night, and then on my way home I was called by a stranger. I was picking it up and asked who was there, and the stranger started saying, "Oh hey," a wrong and shorter version of my name. "Can you remember me? We exchanged numbers when we were smoking at the club last time." I was thinking, okay, wrong number. "Hey there, wrong number. I hate that place and I don't smoke. Sorry, but good luck next time." I was getting off the train, and then I got another call by the same number. I was like, WTF. Picked it up and told him that he is definitely wrong, although he was drunk or something. He then told me, "Hey, I am a friend of your ex. She feels horrible and asked me to talk to you and to make you overthink to come back to her." I was so upset and pissed off. I shouted into the phone in the middle of the night, "Listen up, buddy. Nice try earlier, but I don't care who you are and if you buy her all the drugs. So don't fucking call me again." I was seeing people while I walked home in the distance in front of my gate. I was having a bad feeling and called my family to please pick me up at the stop. They did, and those guys got off really quick. I locked the gate and saw a plant and a note lying there on our ground. I got her that plant. The note said, F*** KU and your stupid flower and your stupid fake presents you made. At this point I said it is enough. Stalking is absolutely not funny. I called the number back, and then I freaked out really bad. "Listen up, mate. If I ever see you again close to my house, I call the cops. I have evidence of her threatening me online, and with phone calls, etc., and also evidence you bothered me multiple times. And the note and the plant. Not so smart. I will tell this all to the police. I hope you regret it all now." After that I haven't heard anything of her. But once I was working in a restaurant at the bar, and she and her friends came there to eat. It was weird, but she told the guys I was her weird ex, and they started bothering me, and I had to get the whole group to get thrown out, and they are not allowed there anymore. For years ago, I thought I had life figured out. I had a girlfriend I adored, a steady job, and a ring hidden in my sock drawer. I was ready to propose. We'd been together for nearly 3 years, and despite a few bumps, she felt like home. Then one Thursday evening, I came back from work to find the apartment half empty. Her side of the closet was bare, her laptop gone, and a note on the counter that said, "I'm sorry. I need something else." Turns out, something else was a guy from her gym. I spiraled. Hard. My friends tried to help. Dragged me to bars, movie nights, even a friend's bachelor party with dancers and dollar bills flying like confetti. And maybe it was the whiskey talking, but something inside me clicked that night. Why was I out here trying to build castles with people who only brought matches? I decided to live a little, for myself this time. I re-downloaded all the apps, Tinder, Hinge, Field, and updated my profile with a new haircut and a line that read, "Not looking for forever, just looking for fun. Bonus points if you like wings and horror movies." That's how I met her. Her name was Cressida, at least that's what her profile said. She had jet black hair, striking gray eyes, and this confident smirk that said she'd already seen through whatever game I thought I was playing. Her bio was weirdly specific. Into tall guys W/long blonde hair, blue or gray eyes, 6 feet plus, and someone who would do anything for me. It felt oddly targeted. I ticked every box, physically anyway. The do anything part? That was more complicated. We started chatting. She was funny, quick with the sarcasm, and didn't ask a lot of small talk questions. Instead, she dove straight into stuff like, "What's your biggest fear?" Or, "If you had to erase one memory forever, what would it be?" Morbid? A little. But I was intrigued. She said she wasn't looking for a relationship, just a connection. That was fine by me. We agreed to meet up that Friday. We met at the Velvet Tap, a low-lit bar and grill in Austin, Texas. The kind of place with old-school booths, strong cocktails, and the best jalapeno wings in the city. She wore a red leather jacket and black jeans, her voice low and smooth, like she'd been narrating more films in another life. We ordered drinks and wings. Talked about normal stuff at first, jobs, music, travel plans. Then, somewhere between my second IPA and her third gin and tonic, the questions started getting odd. "Do you believe in energy transfer?" she asked. "Like crystals?" "No. Like blood. Or pain. Or intention." I laughed nervously. "That's intense." She smirked. "You'll get used to it." Then she asked if I liked horror movies. I said I loved them. She leaned in across the table. "You ever been in a situation where you didn't know if you were the hunter or the prey?" I smiled, trying to joke. Well, this date's starting to feel that way. She laughed, harder than I expected. You're funny. You'll do fine. I figured she was just eccentric. Maybe a little dramatic. But she was hot and I was buzzed, so when she asked if I wanted to come back to her place, I didn't hesitate. I followed her in my car. She lived in a small, eerily quiet neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. Her house was one of those old ranch-style homes with a warped picket fence and wind chimes that sounded like bones clinking together. I told myself it was just the vibe. Inside, it was dimly lit. There were no overhead lights, just a few candles and a lava lamp in the corner. On the couch sat 2 other women. "These are my sisters," she said, introducing them as Odessa and Mira. They were just as striking as Cressida, dark hair, pale skin, smoky eye makeup. Like a trio of witches just back from a midnight seance. They offered me a drink. I took a bourbon and tried to play it cool, but I couldn't shake the feeling I'd walked into a weird art film. We all sat on the couch, sipping and chatting. Cressida sat close to me, her hand tracing lazy lines along my thigh. Her sisters watched us, smiling. Then Cressida stood up and said, "Let's go to my room." She led me down a hallway lit with red string lights. The walls were covered in abstract paintings, dark, chaotic swirls of black, red, and gray. Some looked like they'd been done with fingers, or maybe just smeared. I stepped into her room, and she shut the door behind us. There were no windows, just a mattress on the floor, a black sheet hung on one wall, and a small table with melted candles and what looked like an antique dagger resting on a velvet cloth. NSFW or not, my body was still in hookup mode. I kissed her, and she kissed back hard, dragging her nails down my back. Then she straddled me and leaned in close. "You trust me?" she whispered. I hesitated. Yeah. She smiled. Then I felt it, a sharp, searing pain in my shoulder. I screamed and shoved her off me, stumbling toward the door. My vision blurred, and I almost fell. When I looked down, I saw the handle of a knife sticking out of my shoulder, blood seeping down my shirt. She stood there, breathing heavily, eyes shining in the candlelight. "It was supposed to be symbolic," she said softly. "Not deep." I yanked the knife out. Probably not the smartest move, but adrenaline was surging through me. I flung the door open and found Mira and Odessa standing in the hall. They didn't look shocked. They looked ready. "You're a gift," Mira whispered. "You were chosen." I don't remember what I screamed. Probably something primal. I shoved past them, ran barefoot through the living room, and bolted out the front door. My car keys were still in my pocket, thank God. I jumped in, locked the doors, and peeled out of the driveway. I drove straight to the nearest house with lights on and banged on the door like a madman. An elderly man answered, phone in hand, face pale when he saw the blood. He called 911. I collapsed on his couch. When I woke up, I was in the hospital with a police officer at my bedside. I told him everything about the dating app, the bar, the house, the women. He scribbled notes, asked for their names, addresses, anything. But when they checked, the house was empty. No furniture. No candles. No velvet cloth. Just dust and a broken window screen. The officer said the property belonged to someone who'd been renting it short-term through a third party. No record of anyone named Cressida, Odessa, or Mira. My phone was missing. All I had were my car keys and a piece of my shirt soaked in blood. They filed a report and said they'd follow up. They never did. I still have nerve pain in my left shoulder from the injury. Doctors said the knife missed critical arteries by less than an inch. I haven't dated since, not seriously. I deleted the apps, changed my number, even moved apartments. Every now and then, I get a weird friend request from a profile with no photo and a single letter for a name. I was part of a group with the woman and several other people. I won't name what we did, but let's just say it was in the space of performing comedy. I didn't know her or several of the other people ahead of time, but as I got to know her, she turned out to be really funny and excellent performer at what we did. She was a real pro. I personally am drawn to competence and talent, so we started hanging out. This was right around the time between Christmas and New Year's, and we would plan some events for the whole group, knowing that we were the only 2 members in town, so we wasn't so obvious to either of us or anybody else what was happening. We went to a movie totally platonically. We went to a nice Asian fusion restaurant platonically, and I invited her over to my house to watch a movie platonically, but with the intention of checking things out. This was like 3 days before New Year's. I will say that things went well, and then it's the only time in my life I've actually done the cliched thing of going on a date, bringing that date home, and then having sex with that date. The afternoon of New Year's Eve, she texted me the innocent question, "What are you doing for New Year's?" Which I took as an essentially platonic question, just asking me what I'm doing. I had been invited weeks earlier to go to the New Year's Eve/housewarming party that my friend, female, was having at her new house. So I told her that's what my plans were. That became the first in a really long line of horrible text messages that realized I'd done the wrong thing with my penis, and I was being punished for it. Her position was that since she and I had had sex, my New Year's plans should be with her. Well, I was able to talk her off the ledge, but I didn't change my plans, and she managed to get herself disinvited before I was going to invite her to the same event. But I don't negotiate with terrorists, yada yada, so I didn't invite her. Things calmed down after that, after she realized I wasn't cheating on her, even though we were not in any kind of declared relationship. We were meeting at my house every week, and after we were done, everybody would take their stuff, put on their coats, and leave, and this one person would do all of that, walk out of the house, pretend to be leaving. Then when everybody was gone, she would come back inside, and we would do the funny bunny. That was pretty much our entire involvement. We didn't actually do anything socially together outside of my house, I think. Anyway, she was getting out of control, and I finally had to break it off with her, so I had a clear heart-to-heart compassionate conversation with her, and she seemed to understand, and then pretend like I didn't exist, and I mean like physically I didn't exist. She stopped speaking to me. She wouldn't even look at me at the times we had to have some interaction. And then, the texts. So, we're broken up. I'd elected to step away from the group that we were a part of, because I felt she was more important to the group than I was. So we really were not seeing each other at all anywhere, because I was also avoiding the community where we would perform. The texts she sent were vile. They were just horrible things about me that were not based on any specifics about me. Like, we didn't really spend that much time together, and really didn't know that much about each other, but she did that thing where she would just describe some other person she must have known, and then say I am built like that person. Every week or two I would get texts that she had figured it all out, and then roll off a conspiracy that most typically was about how I was cheating on her and with who and how I was doing it. I mean, I guess I was a little bit flattered that she thought I was just getting that much ass and have the luxury to make a girl like her just another piece of ass in my harem, despite my behaving in no way that would indicate I regarded her like that. She would make mistakes in logic so large that they were like a gotcha in a government hearing. Like, she accused me of dating her only to make a prior girl I had dated jealous. Even though that other girl broke it off with me, and was also completely unaware of the relationship I had going on because girl I was really seeing and I were actively keeping it a secret from everybody but ourselves. I continued to get texts for months, and I would respond to them, always trying to make things better, or explain something so she didn't feel so hurt, things like that. This Buddhist guy I was talking to in a little bar and explained the situation to, because I was being bombarded by texts as we were sitting there, pointed out to me that on some level I actually liked it, and I know he was right. I have enough training in related areas to know what he means. Basically, I was getting something out of it, or seeking to get something out of it, which was to first off be important to someone, secondly to try and preserve my good guy image, so that nobody ever in the world says something bad about me face with rolling eyes, and helps me keep my attention off of my own sense of loss and bereavement, not just about this relationship, but about all the relationships. As kindly and compassionately as I tried to treat her, I just knew I was not cut out to be one of those people that's abused by their partner verbally and or emotionally, and I wasn't really interested in that, so the Buddhist's advice was to simply stop responding to the texts. He rightly pointed out that I was just giving her what she wanted, so why should she stop? In this case, he was right. From that moment forward, I didn't respond to another text from her, and she stopped texting me about 3 days later or so. Her texts didn't change character at the end. She didn't acknowledge that I wasn't responding to her, and didn't seem to change tactics in response to this fact, but they just stopped. I never got another text from her ever. She's actually a really nice person, and very funny and talented, but also somewhat troubled by stuff from her past, to a slightly larger degree than most of us, so I do wish her well, and I've never wished her ill. It was absolutely my most mature handling of a breakup in my life, but also the worst breakup I had.